Stay tuned for part 2, the betrayals, the lies, and the shocking downfall that followed. At first, I told myself Claire was just adjusting. We went from scraping by to having more money than we could spend. Who wouldn't need some time to adapt? But adjusting doesn't explain the screaming matches over nonsense, or the way she started calling me pathetic if I said no to one of her wild ideas. She hired a personal assistant, not for work, just to manage her life. She bought a designer bag that cost more than our first car. She'd throw tantrums if the driver wasn't waiting outside the exact minute she called. Our kids. She started treating them like accessories for Instagram, dressing them up for photo shoots but handing them off to nannies the rest of the time. The woman who once cuddled with me in thrift store sweaters now slammed doors if her favorite champagne wasn't chilled enough. And she wasn't just cruel to me. The way she treated my mom gutted me. My mom came over one night wearing her old floral dress. Claire smirked and said, "We need to get you out of those poor people clothes." My mom laughed it off, but I saw the hurt in her eyes. The more money we spent, the less peace we had. I started noticing other changes too. Late, charity galas that somehow never posted photos. Spa weekends that didn't show up on any credit card statements. Her phone locked with a code I didn't know. And every time I asked, she went nuclear, accusing me of being controlling, of trying to drag her back to poverty. Meanwhile, my old friends, the ones who stuck by me when I had nothing, were starting to back away. I thought it was jealousy until I learned the truth. Claire had been mocking them behind my back, calling them leeches. She'd even told one of them to stop embarrassing us when he asked if I'd like to meet for beers at our old dive bar. But the biggest blow wasn't her words, it was betrayal from someone even closer. My cousin Nate, who used to share peanut butter sandwiches with me in high school, came to me with a business idea. He wanted to open a gym. I gave him $100,000, no contract, just trust. A month later, the gym didn't exist. Nate had taken the money and vanished to another state. Claire's response: "You should have known better. Poor people can't handle money." Her words felt like knives. I was so busy chasing the next deal, trying to grow our fortune and keep everyone happy, that I ignored the warning signs. My accountant raised flags about overspending. Claire screamed at him until he quit. I found out later she'd hired her friend as our new financial manager, a friend with zero qualifications and a taste for designer shoes. And then came the night that changed everything. Rain poured down outside, the house felt colder than ever. Claire said she had another gala. Something in me snapped. I grabbed my keys, followed her car downtown, heart pounding like I was a broke kid about to get caught stealing. Through the steamed-up window of a high-end restaurant, I saw her, laughing, hand in hand with a man in an Armani suit. They kissed like teenagers. The same woman who once swore she loved me when I had nothing didn't even flinch. I didn't confront her that night. I drove home in silence, numb. I didn't know that her affair was just the tip of the iceberg, or that my entire fortune was already slipping through my fingers thanks to the very people I trusted most. The next part of my story isn't just about infidelity. It's about lies so big they'd make you question everyone you've ever loved. And the fallout? It cost me more than I thought I could survive. After that rainy night, I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. Claire's laugh. Her hand on that man's. The kiss. It looped in my mind like a nightmare. But instead of exploding right then, I did something I'd never done before. I stayed quiet. I needed to know the truth. And deep down, I sensed there was more than just cheating. For a week, I watched her carefully. Every excuse she gave sounded rehearsed. Every work dinner lasted later. Every time I reached for her phone, she clutched it like it was a grenade. One night she forgot her purse on the counter. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I checked the bank app. My stomach dropped. Tens of thousands of dollars had been siphoned out of our joint accounts into an LLC I'd never heard of. Transfers to some boutique hotel and jewelry store I'd never stepped foot in. Worse, withdrawals made by her personal assistant under Claire's approval. When I confronted her about the missing money, I expected denial. What I got was a hurricane. She screamed so loudly the kids hid in their rooms. Called me paranoid. Accused me of cheating. Said I was trying to control her like some broke loser. She even threw a vase, smashed against the wall inches from my head. That's when I knew, the sweet girl I fell in love with in the park years ago was gone. Replaced by someone who thought love was measured in handbags and status. I decided to follow the money trail. Hired a private investigator, something I'd never thought I'd need. What he found broke my heart twice over. The man I saw her with. He wasn't some random fling. He was our financial advisor. The one Claire insisted we hire after running off my old accountant. The one managing our investments and trust funds. The one with access to every penny we had. And he wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was bleeding us dry. Fake investments. Shell companies. Lavish trips billed as business retreats. My net worth wasn't just shrinking, it was vanishing. The PI showed me photos, Claire and him on a beach in Europe, laughing while I was back home dealing with the businesses and kids. Receipts for jewelry I'd never seen. A down payment on a villa in his name, with our money. I wanted to vomit. But it got worse. The PI also uncovered debts in Claire's name I didn't even know about. Private credit lines she opened, maxed out, and left unpaid. Jewelry she rented and never returned. Designer stores chasing us for six-figure bills. I sat in my car for hours with the folder in my lap, shaking. I went from digging coins for lunch to millionaire. And now? I could see the edge of the cliff. And the people I trusted most were the ones pushing me. I didn't confront her that night. I started quietly gathering evidence. Talking to lawyers. Pulling what little money I could into accounts she couldn't touch. But Claire must have sensed something, because what she did next almost destroyed me, not just financially, but personally. Because betrayal from a spouse is one thing. Betrayal from family? That's a wound you can't imagine. I thought losing Claire emotionally was the worst thing that could happen. I was wrong. What came next cut even deeper. After hiring the PI and discovering the affair and financial theft, I confided in my mom. She's the one person I always thought I could count on. She cried with me, hugged me, promised we'd get through it. For a moment, I felt that same comfort I'd known as a kid on those nights when the cupboards were empty but her love was full. A week later, I found out she'd told my sister everything, including about the hidden accounts I was moving money into. I wasn't angry at first, I thought maybe she just wanted to help. But then I noticed strange withdrawals from one of the accounts she knew about. It turned out my sister had used that information to convince Claire she deserved half, before any divorce papers were even filed. They teamed up behind my back. The people I bought houses and cars for, the ones who used to make fun of me for being broke, now whispered that I was selfish for trying to protect myself. My sister even called me screaming, "You wouldn't have anything without us supporting you when you were nothing. Claire deserves what's hers, and so do I." Support? She hadn't spoken to me for years until the money showed up. The PI kept digging. He found that Claire and the financial advisor weren't just having an affair, they'd been siphoning money to a joint account overseas. And guess who co-signed a loan Claire took out with him? My own cousin Nate, the same one who vanished with my $100,000 gym investment. Turns out, he never vanished. He was busy helping Claire and her lover funnel my money away. By the time my lawyer filed the initial paperwork, most of my liquid assets were gone. The trust funds for my kids. Emptied. Properties. Some tied up in lawsuits thanks to shady business ventures Claire signed my name to. When I confronted her, she went full hysterical. Screamed in front of the kids that I was abusive. Called the cops claiming I'd threatened her, all lies, thankfully disproven by home security cameras. But the damage? Reputationally? Immense. Business partners started backing away. Old friends stopped calling. Even some family believed her. And the worst part? I still loved my kids and wanted to protect them from this chaos. I bit my tongue so many times while Claire told anyone who'd listen that I was a monster, just to keep the custody battle from exploding. Every night I'd hear my son ask, "Why is mommy so mad at you?" and I'd feel another piece of myself die. Within a year of becoming a multimillionaire, I was hemorrhaging money so fast I felt dizzy. Lawyers. Fraud. Fake loans. And the vultures circling? They weren't strangers, they were my wife, my family, and my friends. But here's where the universe served its cruelest twist, a betrayal so shocking, so personal, that it made me question whether money was a curse from the start. Someone I never expected would join Claire's side, and what they did next left me homeless, humiliated, and convinced I'd hit rock bottom. Except rock bottom? It was still a long way down. I thought I'd already hit my lowest point. Claire and her lover were siphoning money. My sister and cousin betrayed me. My reputation was shredded by lies. But life wasn't finished gutting me yet. The custody hearings bled me dry with legal fees. Claire's lawyer painted me as some out-of-touch millionaire who abandoned his family emotionally, completely ignoring that she was the one sneaking off to Europe while I was tucking our kids in. Every lie she told, I had to pay thousands just to prove false. I won some battles, but each one left me more broke than before. Then came the foreclosure notices. I'd trusted Claire to pay the property taxes. While she and her lover were sipping champagne in Paris on my dime, those bills sat unpaid. Penalties stacked up, and by the time I found out, it was too late. The bank seized our mansion. My kids' bedrooms, the home I thought we'd grow old in, gone. We moved into a small rental, but even that slipped away after my business accounts were drained by fraudulent loans Claire had signed in my name. My attorney said I had a strong case for fraud, but lawsuits take time and money, two things I no longer had. And here's where the real dagger came, my father reappeared. The same man who walked out when I was 8 showed up, all crocodile tears and fake concern. I was desperate for family, so I let him in. I didn't know he'd been talking to Claire behind my back. He convinced me he wanted to help manage what's left. I was naive enough to believe him, maybe because I wanted a dad so badly. Within months, what little savings I had left was gone. He funneled it straight to Claire and her financial advisor boyfriend. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. He just sneered, "You should have remembered where you came from. Money makes fools think they're kings." And then he walked out again. I haven't seen him since. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had a beat-up car, a duffel bag of clothes, and visitation rights with my kids in a rented studio apartment. The kid who once dreamed of escaping poverty had lived his dream of wealth, and now was back where he started. But this time, it wasn't just poverty. It was poverty with betrayal, heartbreak, and humiliation. And yet, as crazy as it sounds, losing everything wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of something I never expected, a chance to see who truly loved me without a dime to my name. Because not everyone turned their back. One person in particular, someone I never thought would matter, stepped up when I had nothing left. And that's where the tide began to turn. After the foreclosure and my father's betrayal, I thought I had nothing left to lose. But poverty feels heavier when you've tasted wealth. It's not just empty cupboards, it's the ghosts of everything you had and the humiliation that follows you everywhere. People I once called friends crossed the street to avoid me. Some whispered behind my back, calling me a failure, a cautionary tale. The hardest part was my kids. Visiting them in that cramped studio felt like a cruel joke. My son once asked, "Daddy, why don't we live in the big house anymore? Did I do something wrong?" I held him until he fell asleep that night, and I cried silently so he wouldn't hear. Nothing Claire ever did could hurt as much as that. Then something happened I never expected. One evening, as I was leaving a free legal aid clinic, I heard someone call my name. It was Mia, a girl I'd gone to high school with. Back then, I was the broke kid who got bullied. She was one of the few who ever smiled at me. We lost touch after graduation. Now she worked as a paralegal at the clinic. We grabbed coffee, and for the first time in years, someone asked how I was really doing without judgment or pity. She didn't care that I was broke. She didn't ask about the mansion or the sports cars. She listened. And something in me broke open. For weeks, she checked in, sometimes dropping off groceries for the kids, sometimes just sitting with me in silence when the world felt too heavy. And then came the night I saw Claire again, and Mia was there to witness it. I'd gone to pick up the kids. Claire answered the door in a designer dress, dripping jewelry, and that smug smile I once mistook for confidence. Behind her, in my old house, stood the financial advisor, the man she'd blown up our lives for. Except they weren't smiling. They were screaming at each other. Apparently, his perfect investments had gone south. The overseas account was nearly empty. And Claire, who once mocked me for being too cautious, was now broke by rich people's standards, leveraged to the hilt, with creditors circling. She spotted Mia waiting in the car and went ballistic. Screamed about how I'd moved on to some broke loser. Mia just raised an eyebrow and said, "Funny, at least he didn't have to buy me." I swear I almost laughed right there on the porch. Claire shrieked until the kids ran out crying, and that's when I realized, money hadn't made her evil. It had just revealed what was already there. That night, after I tucked the kids into their fold-out beds in my studio, Mia sat beside me on the floor. She said, "You've lost everything you thought mattered. But you haven't lost yourself. That's worth more than all the money in the world." I didn't know it yet, but she was right. And over the next months, with her support, I began clawing my way back, not just financially, but emotionally. And just when I started to believe I might rebuild a decent life, Claire made one last desperate move that would blow everything up again, leading to the most shocking confrontation of my life. For a while, things were calm, or as calm as they could be when you're rebuilding from ashes. I worked part-time gigs fixing phones and laptops again, the same way I started years ago. Mia was there for me every step, never asking for a dime, never judging me for the studio apartment or the dented car. For the first time in years, I felt like someone liked me, not the life I could give them. But peace didn't last. Claire wasn't done with me. One Saturday, I went to pick up the kids. When I got to her place, yes, my old mansion, she was standing outside screaming into her phone, barefoot on the lawn, hair a mess. It was a side of her I'd never seen in public. The queen, who once demanded only vintage champagne, was now shrieking like a banshee, mascara running down her face. I parked at the curb, told the kids to stay in the car, and walked up. Before I could speak, she turned and shouted, "This is your fault. You ruined everything." She wasn't talking to me, though. She was yelling at the financial advisor, her lover, the man who drained my accounts. He was standing there with 2 duffel bags, tossing them into an Uber. Turns out, his investments tanked, his license got revoked, and the creditors weren't just after Claire, they were after him too. And the kicker? He left her right there on the front lawn. Told her she was useless without money, and drove off. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, all I felt was sad. Sad for the kids watching their mom unravel. Sad for the girl I met at a park years ago who turned into this hysterical stranger. She begged me for help that day, screamed that I should at least pay the mortgage since I'd ruined her reputation. I reminded her she'd stolen my money, my home, and my peace of mind. The irony didn't land. Then she tried something even worse. A week later, I got served with papers. Claire was filing for full custody, claiming my poverty made me unfit to care for the kids. She even fabricated stories about Mia, lies about her being unsafe and unstable. It was a desperate, low blow. But this time, I wasn't the naive millionaire who rolled over. I had documentation of all the fraud, the affair, and her financial abuse. I took it to court. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the one on trial. The hearing was explosive. Claire had a public meltdown in front of the judge when confronted with evidence, screamed, cried, accused everyone of conspiring. The judge wasn't impressed. Not only did I keep shared custody, but the court also ordered Claire to undergo counseling and financial audits. Watching her unravel in that courtroom was surreal. The same woman who once mocked me for being pathetic was now pleading for leniency. I'd love to say that was the end of it. But Claire wasn't the only ghost from my past who reappeared. Someone else came forward unexpectedly with an offer that changed my future, and it came from the very same world that chewed me up and spat me out. After Claire's courtroom meltdown, I thought maybe, just maybe, the storm had finally passed. I was wrong, but for the first time in years, a small ray of light broke through. A few weeks later, I got an email from someone I hadn't spoken to since my business sellout. It was Marcus, one of my old investors, the same guy who gave me my first big break when I was repairing phones in a dingy shop. Back when I sold the company, he made millions too, but unlike others, he quietly disappeared when Claire started playing queen. He didn't hang around the parties or call for handouts. The email was short, I heard what happened. Meet me for coffee. I almost didn't go. Shame still burned in me. But Mia nudged me. You've got nothing to lose, she said. So I went. Marcus didn't pity me or gloat. He just listened. And then he said something that floored me, you were the hardest working guy I ever met. You didn't deserve what happened. I want to back you again, but this time, on your terms. He offered me a small investment to start another repair shop. Nothing flashy, just seed money. But he added one condition, run it lean. No shortcuts, no luxury, and keep only the people around you who showed up when you had nothing. It felt like a second chance. But here's where the loyalty test came in. Word got around fast. Suddenly, some of the same friends who ghosted me when I was broke started reaching out again. Old family members who mocked my studio apartment were suddenly texting, proud of you, cuz. Let's grab lunch. Even my sister called asking for a small loan to get back on her feet. I had to decide, repeat the same mistakes, or draw hard boundaries. For once, I said no. To all of them. The only people I brought into my second chapter were the ones who stood by me when I had nothing, my mom, my kids, and Mia. The shop wasn't glamorous, but we made it ours. I worked long hours repairing cracked screens, soldering circuits, greeting customers one by one. And it felt good. Honest. But just as things were turning around, Claire pulled one last stunt. She showed up at the shop one day unannounced, hair disheveled, mascara smeared, begging for another chance. She claimed she was broke now, that her friends had abandoned her too. She said, we can rebuild together, for the kids. It shook me. A part of me, the broke kid who once loved her, wanted to believe her. But then I looked at Mia, who'd been cleaning counters and laughing with my son in the corner, and I realized who had been loyal from the start. I told Claire no. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. What happened next was the final twist I never saw coming. The man Claire betrayed me with came back into the picture, and what he revealed in court about her changed everything, for me, for our kids, and for Claire's carefully crafted lies. After Claire's public breakdown and her failed attempt to take full custody, I thought there wasn't much left that could surprise me. I was wrong again. Life still had one more cruel twist to serve, and ironically, it came from the man she blew our lives up for. A few weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer, Claire's ex-lover, the financial advisor, had been subpoenaed in another fraud case. He'd been caught running scams with other clients, and to get a lighter sentence, he started spilling every secret he had. Including all of Claire's. Under oath, he admitted not only to siphoning my accounts but to forging my signature on multiple loans and investment contracts. He confessed that Claire knew and encouraged him. Even worse, he revealed that some of the fake abuse stories Claire spread about me in court had been rehearsed between them to destroy my reputation and sway custody. There were emails, voice notes, everything. When my lawyer handed me the file of evidence, I sat there shaking. Not out of anger anymore, but out of disbelief at just how far Claire had gone. The woman I once shared dollar menu fries with had plotted with her lover to ruin me not just financially, but personally. It hurt less now, I think I'd run out of tears. But it also gave me something else, vindication. We brought that evidence to family court. The judge ordered an independent custody evaluator to re-examine everything. This time, Claire didn't scream or throw things. She just sat there pale and silent while her lies were exposed. The financial advisor's testimony shredded what little credibility she had left. For the first time, I felt the weight lifting off my chest. The court didn't just maintain shared custody, they gave me primary custody with Claire getting supervised visitation until she could prove she'd changed. It wasn't about revenge. It was about giving my kids stability and safety after years of chaos. Claire left the courthouse without looking at me. Later, I heard she sold off the remaining jewelry and moved into a small apartment. I don't wish her harm, I just wish she'd been honest before burning our lives down. As for me, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the years and love lost, but relief that the truth was finally out. Mia hugged me that night and said, "Now you can finally breathe." And for the first time in years, I believed her. But my story wasn't finished yet. There was one last chapter of rebuilding and one final twist of kindness from an unexpected place that taught me the most important lesson of all, what loyalty really looks like. After the courtroom storm settled, life felt strangely quiet. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up dreading the next betrayal or legal notice. I woke up to the sound of my kids laughing in my tiny apartment and Mia humming as she made pancakes. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't designer clothes or sports cars. But it felt more like home than anything I'd owned while I was rich. The repair shop Marcus helped me start was slowly gaining traction. Word spread that I was honest, affordable, and cared about the customers. Local folks appreciated that I didn't look down on anyone, because I'd been there, broke and invisible. Funny how the same skills I had as a poor kid, fixing phones with duct tape and prayers, were now helping me rebuild my life. And Mia? She became my anchor. She never asked for anything except my time. She bonded with my kids like she'd always been part of our family. Watching her play board games on the floor with them while I closed up the shop late filled me with a peace money could never buy. But the world has a dark sense of humor. Some of the very people who mocked me when I was broke, and later ghosted me when I lost my fortune, suddenly started showing up again. Old friends came into the shop, pretending to need repairs just to poke around and see if I was making money again. One even had the nerve to say, "Man, if you ever get back on top, remember who's always been there." I almost laughed in his face. Then my sister called again, crying about how her life was falling apart. She begged for money. For a moment, I wanted to slam the phone down. But instead, I told her the truth, I don't have money to give you. And even if I did, loyalty doesn't start when someone's doing well. It starts when they're at rock bottom. Where were you when I needed you? She didn't have an answer. What surprised me most was that even some of the bullies from my childhood reached out, asking for jobs or partnerships. I told them politely no. I wasn't angry anymore, I just didn't owe them my future. And here's the twist I never saw coming, an elderly woman came into my shop one evening with an ancient flip phone. She looked familiar but I couldn't place her until she said, "I used to be your neighbor. I remember your mom cutting mold-off bread for you kids." She told me she'd always admired how hard my mom worked, and she wanted me to know that my story inspired her granddaughter to start college. That one comment made me realize something: my journey, the poverty, the wealth, the betrayal, the loss, wasn't just about me. It could help others. For the first time, I felt grateful for everything I'd been through. If I'd stayed rich, I never would have learned who truly loved me. If I hadn't fallen, I never would have found Mia, or this peace. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale overnight. I was still living in a small apartment, still hustling at the shop, still pinching pennies to make sure the kids had what they needed. But compared to the chaos of the past few years, it felt like heaven. Stability, peace, love, they meant more than any car or mansion ever could. Mia and I grew closer every day. She was there for the little things: school runs, late-night talks, movie nights on the couch. My kids adored her. They started calling her their bonus mom without any prompting from me. It healed something deep inside to see them smiling again, not walking on eggshells around constant screaming. One afternoon, I got a knock at the shop door. When I opened it, I froze. Standing there was Claire's mother. For a split second, I braced myself for insults or accusations. Instead, she handed me an envelope and said quietly, "I'm sorry for everything." Inside was a letter. She admitted she'd looked the other way while Claire spiraled into greed and manipulation. She said she'd been harsh to me when I was broke, worshipped her daughter when she was rich, and ignored the damage it caused. And then she said something that floored me: "I want to help the kids. I don't want my granddaughter and grandson to think love only comes with money." There was a modest check enclosed, not a fortune, but enough to cover some school costs and maybe a small vacation for the kids. It wasn't about the money. It was about acknowledgement. For years, I thought Claire's whole family hated me. That letter lifted a weight I didn't know I was carrying. People can surprise you, even the ones who hurt you the most. Not long after, Claire began attending counseling as the court had ordered. I heard from my lawyer that she'd stopped partying, started working a regular job, and was trying to repair her relationship with the kids during her supervised visits. I don't know if she'll ever truly change, but I hope she does, for their sake. I'm not angry anymore. Just done. The biggest surprise? My old investor Marcus stopped by the shop one evening and said, "You've proven you can build something honest. Ready to expand?" He wanted to help me open a second location. This time, I didn't let ego take over. I accepted, humbly, with Mia by my side and the kids helping hand out flyers. Growth didn't mean flaunting wealth, it meant stability for the people I loved. But there was still one more chapter in this journey, the final goodbye to my old life and the lesson I learned that I want to leave with anyone who hears my story. When I look back on my life now, it feels almost unreal. The kid who went to bed hungry, the man who thought money would fix everything, the millionaire surrounded by fake friends, the broke single dad on the edge of losing hope, all of those versions of me led here. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. The final twist came on an ordinary Saturday. I was cleaning up the shop with Mia and the kids when a man in a suit walked in. It took me a second to recognize him, one of my old bullies from high school. He'd been one of the worst, calling me trash boy, shoving me into lockers. Back then, I swore I'd never forgive him. He looked nervous and asked quietly if I was hiring. Life had been hard for him, he'd lost his job, his marriage. There was no smugness, no arrogance left, just a man trying to provide for his kids. And in that moment, something in me shifted. I had every reason to throw his past in his face, to laugh the way he once laughed at me. Instead, I said, "Can you start Monday? Because here's what I've learned, money comes and goes. So does status. What lasts is how you treat people, especially when they have nothing to give you." Hiring him wasn't about revenge, it was about breaking the cycle. People change. Life humbles all of us eventually. And in that moment, I realized losing everything had taught me more about loyalty and love than being rich ever could. Mia hugged me that night and whispered, "You've come full circle." And she was right. I was finally at peace with my past. But there's one last chapter to share, how my journey truly ends, what I want anyone listening to take away, and how I said goodbye to the pain of my old life for good. This is the last chapter of my story. If you've followed me from the dirt floors of my childhood to the glass towers of my short-lived wealth, through the betrayals, heartbreak, and rebuilding, thank you. It hasn't been easy to relive all of this, but maybe it can help someone else. Looking back, I thought money would fix the shame of being poor. I thought riches meant safety, love, and respect. Instead, wealth just turned up the volume on who people already were. The loyal stayed loyal. The greedy got greedier. And the ones who laughed at me when I was broke just had better suits when they tried to take me down. I lost everything I thought mattered. I slept on floors again. I faced betrayals from my wife, my own blood, people I would have died for. But somehow, on the other side of all that pain, I found the things money can't buy: real love, peace, and a purpose. Mia and I are building a simple, happy life. My kids are thriving, laughing again. The shop is growing slowly and honestly. And you know what? I'm glad I fell. Because if I'd stayed rich, I never would have learned who really loved me, or what loyalty and kindness actually mean. If there's one thing you take away from my journey, let it be this: the measure of your life isn't in your bank account, but in how you treat people when they have nothing to offer you. Money can vanish in an instant, integrity and love are what remain. So that's it. From poverty to millions and back again, I've come full circle. And I wouldn't trade the ending I have now for all the mansions in the world. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to hear what you think, what you'd have done in my shoes, and what loyalty means to you. Drop your thoughts below. Goodbye, and take care of each other.